Yes, sir. Welcome back to another Chop or Die film session. I'm your host of Chop or Die Podcast, Molly Mall, and listen, we're here to talk about your boy. First round draft pick out of Oregon, left tackle Josh Conerly Jr. Josh is a top 5 offensive tackle prospect that Washington selected. Surprised a lot of people. And, that's something that, a lot of people weren't really interested in, I would say, when the initial pick happened, but warmed up to it and understood the bigger purpose. What does Josh Conerly Jr. bring to the Washington Commanders as a rookie? That's what we're going to break down on this film session. We're going to talk about his strengths. We're going to talk about some of his concerns and the questions that exist for Josh Conerly as he transitions into an NFL professional offensive tackle. So without further ado, let's go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Josh Conerly Jr. film session starts right now. All right, so let's talk about what he does from a pass protection standpoint. That is his strength. His strength is in the pass pro game. Just like all-season acquisition Laramie Tunsil, you got 2 pass protecting offensive tackles in your offensive line room now. That is something that you can really benefit from if you're Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury moving forward. And what you get from Josh typically is good hand placement on his initial strikes. His feet is consistent in terms of where he's going, his set point, right? Even if he slightly overcommits, right? You see the quickness to get right back inside, but also that strike, that punch that slows down the rusher. Now you're talking about mirroring, all right? Moving where the defensive lineman moves. That's a really good job of all of those aspects in one play. All right, and one of my favorite reps is against Wisconsin. Very good reaction against the spin move. You're talking about quick reactions. You take your vertical drop. Right, footwork still sharp, has intent behind it, right? What I mean by intent, like there's no wasted steps. He's able to have an answer against the spin move. But also, like, when you look at his feet and you look at his width, all right, being able to keep that base and just slide laterally. Like, he doesn't cross his feet, just stays in front of the defender. It's a really good rep against the spin move, trying to win inside. All right, so another thing that Conerly is good at is his quickness and his suddenness when he jumps defenders, right? Now, this is a really good rep against a professional edge rusher, right? Like, he's draft quality too. Top half of the draft too, is what I'm saying. And at the snap, he gets out there with quickness. You can see the initial quickness at the snap and how quickly he gets on 44. Locks onto him, gets into his chest, has the arm length, right, to make things difficult, but also the grip strength. Now, I don't think his grip strength is actually super strong. You don't really see him the defender up and like lock in. Like, I don't see that enough, but on this rep is good, right? So like it exists, but you want to see it a little bit more because defenders aren't always like in a depth grip. They can get out of it, if that makes sense. But again, jumping the defender, locks onto him, not able to let 44 isn't able to really get a good burst off the line or even get into his pass rush move. So here we go. Another example of the suddenness that comes with his jump sets. He's on 44 really quickly. Shout out to the 44s out there that he's going up against. But you see the suddenness, right? He sets up with the angle set and then attacks the defender. 44 doesn't have an answer, and Josh just overwhelms him. All right. That is kind of when you look at his pass sets, like he takes the angles, he takes the verticals. We're talking about pass sets, right? He takes the jump sets, right? Like he has the understanding in terms of the variety and understanding of how to execute them. Another rep and finishes the play. That's a big hit. I hope that dude got flagged. But you see the suddenness, drives the defender into the ground, wins the rep easily. Toolbox, right? The jump set again. Finishes the play. Well, he doesn't really finish on that one, but you know, he gets him to the ground. That's a win for him. But you can see the reaction through the rusher and how it surprises him, right? So that's a good rep for Josh. Another thing that Josh is good at is post-snap processing. He understands twists, stunts, line games, pressure looks. And I think for Josh coming into the NFL, having that ability to get his head in the right direction and where it needs to be to take on crashers, loopers, and maybe even edge rushers, or even understanding when edge rushers bail, where his eyes needs to be for the next move from a line game is very important. See that? 15 drops back in coverage, shows the edge threat initially, but ends up backing off. His first move is going back inside. This is a 5-man look from Wisconsin as well. Ends up being 4-man rush, but you see kind of where his head is supposed to be in the right direction. Another one from Conerly. Same thing, right? Now we're talking about, last one was a pressure look. This one is a twist game. Really good quickness, like he's locked in from a competitiveness standpoint, mental processing, like all of that is really good from your first round draft pick. Same thing, get your redirect, sending 44 into your help and taking on 58. Now, Ohio State didn't do such a great game. They didn't run a great game, like, but at the same time, if you need your offensive lineman to be smart enough to pick that up, right? And him helping out his inside help, like, it's pretty good. All right, so in the run game, like I said, I think he's pass first primarily, but in the run game, he shows some good ability on the first and second level, right? Having as a post and seal blocker. Like the post is the guy who climbs, the seal is the person who helps at the first level and stays at the first level with that defender. And he's able to seal, get to the next level, create about a 10-yard run for his rusher. Good work on the 5 technique here with his tight end. Big hit, climbing up to the second level. Get your guy loose for about 12 yards. But again, he works good with his guards. He works good with his tight ends on these combo blocks. Really good rep. Getting upfield. And then kickouts is something that works well too. Like their zone scheme runs, he did a really good job setting the edge for his running backs. His kickouts is pretty good. Same thing here. Getting that edge set. Now your man get out there. Then we're talking about pulling. Cliff loves him, an athletic offensive lineman. You can see the acceleration, getting upfield. Like he's moving very fluidly for that big man, that big frame. All right, but you can see him get out of his stance, get out into the open field. He has good vision, right? Being able to locate those guys post snap. Really good rep from him. But you can see, like in that instance, it's not a huge play, but you can see he's comfortable in space. That's the positive takeaway from a guy who runs like that in space. All right, so we talked about most of the good. Now, I said initially after I watched the first 5 games of Conerly, like I felt like I needed to watch a few more because I'm not too sure exact. Like when I see his weaknesses, it really stems off core strength, functional strength, and his ability to like keep his chest clean in the pass rush game, right? And like I don't know, like if it's just me being in my head about like if his deficiencies can eventually turn into like a strength or like he can build on them, right? And it's not a huge weakness, right? Maybe the case for me just not understanding fully what's in store for him from a development standpoint. I think that's fair for anybody who has questions. And that's kind of where I get into the concerns for Conerly. He gets driven back a lot. Whether it's his ability to set an anchor, bending at the waist, right? And not like standing firm to prevent something like this. I think those are where my questions exist for Josh. I need somebody eventually who can stand his ground and prevent that long arm from really causing havoc. Like that's one thing that I would like to see from Josh as he develops as a pro. Have an answer for the long arm, right? Like don't let this guy drive into your chest like that. Get that arm off your chest. Same thing here. Now that was a good rep because the ball got out quick, but he basically got driven into the quarterback on about 2 yards, something like that. And in this one, you can kind of see where his hands play a part. right? And when I talk about defenders getting into his chest, right, his initial placement outside on those shoulder pads. So he's basically hugging the dude. But often you can see defenders get inside, and that's something that you kind of want to eliminate first and foremost, because that's where they get their leverage from. But also, if you don't have the core strength to sit down and anchor, you know, all you're going to do is get driven back into the quarterback. So that's going to wrap it up on this film session. I love the idea of Josh Conerly. He shows professional traits early on coming into the NFL. And that's what you want, obviously, from your first round pick. And to get him late into the first round, rumors are that there was teams trying to trade up back from the second round into the first to snatch Josh Conerly Jr. It's an indication of like how valuable he was to some teams that was still in need of offensive line help. I think Conerly is an athletic offensive lineman with tons of room to grow. And for his age at 20, 21, however old he is, I always get 20 or 21. So that's why I said it like that. For him to have the advanced toolbox that he has coming into the NFL at that age, at that younger age, is impressive. And it shows coaches who are willing to develop them that this is worth the time to do so. I think Josh Conerly has to get better with his core strength. He has to get better with his ability to set his anchor, right? And trust himself, sink the hips in. I do not give up too much ground, because I think it was impressive that he did the way he did without having, like, he didn't give up a lot of sacks, but he only gave up 2 all season, if not his entire career. And I think that's impressive with his inability to actually have that anchor and that core strength, right? So like for Josh and for Washington, I think this is a really good marriage. He's young enough where he can take a couple years to develop, but right now he's in good shape to bolster up your offensive line, give you options, more importantly, grow into what's already a semi-young offensive line core with Brandon Coleman, Sam Cosmi, and now Josh Conerly adding to the mix with the veterans Biadasz and Laramie Tunsil. Without further ado, that's gonna wrap it up for this film session. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Till next time, man. Peace.